Hi, we are in the middle of Torah Yud Zayin in Likutei Moharan called VaYehi Merikim. And so we were learning in this Torah, Rabbi Nachman is teaching us in this Torah how we can come to experience, to love Hashem and to fear Hashem in our relationship to Hashem. We explain that the relationship with Hashem, the connection with Hashem, is the energy that is created from the combination of Yira and Ahava, from fear and love of Hashem. Together, there is an energy that is basically that spiritual glue that connects us to the Ribono Shel Olam, that builds the relationship with Hashem. And Rabbi Nachman explained that we experience this love and fear of Hashem through the tzaddik. We receive it from the tzaddik. The tzaddik reveals something that when that is revealed, what is experienced by us is this love and fear in Hashem. What does the tzaddik reveal? The tzaddik reveals one thing that has two sides to it. The tzaddik reveals the purpose that Hashem has in creating the world, the intention that Hashem had in creating the world, and the purpose that Hashem has for each thing. That's called the Ratzon of Hashem. And the other side is that the answer of this is the pride that Hashem prides himself with Am Yisrael, with the Jewish people. And so the pride that Hashem prides himself with all the Jewish people in general, and with each individual in the Jewish people specifically, that is the reason, that's the purpose and the intention that Hashem has in created the world in general, and for every detail, every specific part of the world. And so when the tzaddik reveals this, when that pride that Hashem prides himself with the Jewish people is revealed, that's considered the tefillin of Hashem. And the tefillin have an effect that when the tefillin are donned upon a person, all the 70 nations feel awe because of that. And so this aspect of tiferet, this pride that Hashem prides himself with the Jewish people in general, and with each individual specifically, when the tzaddik reveals that, that's comparable to the king wearing his clothes of royalty and splendor on the day of the coronation of the king, and the day that his kingship is celebrated. And so at that point, all of the subjects of the king, the whole kingdom, feels awe from this being revealed, from the king being presented in such a way, and his royalty being celebrated in such a way. And so that's the yira of Hashem. That's the fear and the awe of Hashem that is revealed when the tzaddik brings to awareness the pride that Hashem prides himself with the Jewish people. And then when that's revealed, so now we find the purpose and the intention that Hashem had in creating the world in general, and specifically with each specific part of the world. And that is what will bring us to experience love of Hashem. Why? Because when Hashem's intention for creating the world is revealed, so what is revealed is the fulfillment of Hashem's intention in the world. That's what's being revealed. The fulfillment and the accomplishment of Hashem's desire and Hashem's purpose and Hashem's goal and Hashem's wish in every part of the world. And so when that's revealed, and so the king has a tremendous happiness, it's tremendous joy. And that's the joy that the king is experiencing with his subjects, with his kingdom, with the people that are there celebrating his royalty, his kingship on the coronation day. And that's the time when the king takes each one of his subjects and he asks them what they want, what they wish for, and he gives them their heart's desires. And so that's the king showing his love to each individual. And that's the ahava of Hashem, the love of Hashem, which is revealed through the tzaddik. When the tzaddik reveals how the whole world and every part of the world is a fulfillment of Hashem's intention, of Hashem's purpose, of Hashem's wish in creating the world, so then there is this love that Hashem shows to us, to his subjects, to the people in his kingdom. Whatever we wish for, Hashem gives it to us. And that's the love, the tremendous closeness, that you are my son, and whatever you want, I'm giving to you. So that's the love and the fear. And then so that now that we know how the love and the fear is experienced, and how the tzaddik brings to awareness the pride of Hashem and the fulfillment of Hashem's intention, that it brings us to experience the love and the fear of Hashem, there is something that blocks a person from experiencing that light which is given to us through the tzaddik. And that's the block where a person is blinded from the light of the tzaddik. You can stand right next to the tzaddik and not really see the tzaddik and not experience the tzaddik, not know the greatness of the tzaddik. And that comes from achirut ha'ma'asim u'chsidut ha'sechel. It comes from foolish actions when a person is acting inappropriately, wrongly, where a person's actions are in disalignment with integrity, with what is right, with what is the right way of living, with the will of Hashem, with the Torah and the mitzvot. And that brings a person to achirut ha'sechel, to foolishness of the mind, where a person can be very, very wise and knowledgeable, but if that wisdom and that knowledge is not being channeled appropriately through the right actions, right? The light is not channeled in the proper vessels, is the Kabbalistic way of saying that, then that person is considered lacking dat. He's missing the dat, he's missing that he's missing that consciousness, and therefore he is in a state of foolishness. The chsilut, the shtut and the chsilut is the opposite of dat. And so we must rectify that. And so Rabbi Nachman explains to us that what parallels all this, what's going on in the inner spiritual realm that causes this foolishness, is that there are these forces of obscurity, forces of concealment that surround the Malchut. They surround the Shechina, they surround the holiness, they surround the Malchut, which is called the Mizbeach. And they steal from the Malchut, their source of energy is what they manage to steal from the side of holiness, from the kingdom of Hashem, which is called the Mizbeach. And when they manage to steal that from the Malchut, so that is also paralleling what happens in a person where the animal soul overpowers the higher soul, the higher self. And the animal soul represents the ego, represents the physicality, represents the materialism. It represents all of the desires and the lusts that mankind has. In a way, it's common and similar to the animals, right? And so that's kind of connected to the body, the instinct, the body instinct, and the desires that the reptilian brain of a person. And so when that overpowers the higher self, it causes foolishness. The higher self is no longer in control. The higher self the person is no longer identifying with his higher self, and that's no longer in conscious awareness. That kind of takes the back, it goes into the background. It takes the back burner. And now what is in the forefront and what's in control of this little village, what's called Ir Katan, the body of a person is called a little village because it's a world unto itself. Now what's in control is the Melech Zaken Uksil, it's the Yetzer Hara, it's the old foolish, what's called, the Gemara describes the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, as Melech Zaken Uksil, the old foolish king, because one of his main characteristics and what he causes a person to experience is foolishness. Ksilut, Melech Zaken Uksil, the old foolish king. And so on the inner spiritual realm, what has happened was that the forces of obscurity and concealment have stolen more energy than they need in order to survive, and now they have overpowered, unfortunately, they have overpowered the Mizbeach, the Malchut. And so they cause this disconnection and this fragmentation, and they cause this incoherence by this individual. And so we must reverse that. And so Rabbi Nachman explains to us, first of all, that we can reverse this by our eating habits, by eating in a kosher and holy way. Doesn't mean just that the food is kosher, doesn't just mean that we make a bracha on the food that we're eating, but it also means, where is our consciousness, where is our awareness while we're eating? What are the intentions that we have when we are eating? Are we eating in order to satisfy our the animal taiva, the animal lust, the gluttony and the desires of just filling ourselves up with more food and more drink? Or are we eating what we need in order to have energy, better energy, greater energy to serve Hashem in a greater, more expanded, more clear, more wonderful way? And so that way of eating with that intention and that way, what you're doing is you are weakening and subduing the forces of obscurity, the forces of concealment, the animal self, and you're giving power to the seichel, to the consciousness, to the clear consciousness, so that it may come back to the forefront. It can be now in control, and it can dissolve all of that, all of those blocks of the animal self. And now the animal self will only be in peace and in harmony, allowing the soul to shine through and to continue the work of Hashem in this physical world. And that's really the purpose of why we're eating. And that's in this way of eating and in this way of living our life, we are fulfilling the purpose of this combination between the spiritual and the physical, between the soul and the body. And so when we do that, we cause hitromemut hasechel. So instead of foolishness, now we're causing an expansion and an increase of our intellect, our spiritual intellect, our consciousness. And so Rabbi Nachman says now that, again, Rabbi Nachman gives us throughout the Torah's many parallels on different levels and different dimensions, the same thing happening in alternative dimensions, in alternative levels, in different layers, and that adds clarity to what is happening in all the other levels and all the other layers, and that allows us to see many different options that are connected to that same formula, many different options that will open up for us many different ways of applying the formula of that Torah and getting to the desired effect. And so here he does this as well, and he explains to us that now back to the explanation of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is surrounded by these forces of obscurity, of concealment, what's called the klipot. And when we complete and perfect the Mizbeach, right, a perfect Mizbeach doesn't allow, it has no weak points. If the Mizbeach is absolutely perfect and complete in every direction that you look at it, then you're not allowing, there's no ability for these forces of concealment to steal anything, any of that energy, any of that life energy away from it. And so what that means to say is that if you complete the Malchut, you perfect the Malchut, then she is immune to the darkness, the 70 nations that are trying to steal from its energy. And that's what this part in the Torah is going to explain to us a little bit more. So Rabbi Nachman, we started speaking about this in the previous shir, up to Ot Dalid, part 4 in this Torah. כי כל עבודה זרה אינה כוח כי אם מפגם המזבח, וזה שכתוב בכל מקום מוכתר ומוגש לשמי. כי אף שהם עובדי עבודה זרה, כל כוחם הוא בא מפגם חלקי המזבח. וכן אמר השם יתברך מוכתר ומוגש לשמי, כי כוחם הוא מהניצוץ הקדוש של המזבח לקדושה שנפל לשם. So all of the idol worshippers, whenever you see any idol worshippers in the world, any people that use sorcery and witchcraft and idol worship and other religions, and they still seem to be successful and have some sort of abundance in their life, some sort of blessings in their life, it's only what they managed. Those are the forces of concealment, the forces of sheker, of falsehood, and that make it seem as if they have blessings on their own accord, but it's really only what they have stolen from the Malchut, from Hashem. And that's why the Pasuk in Malachi says that in every place where incense is burnt and sacrifices are offered, it is really in my name. Meaning even in some church or in some temple, wherever it is in the world that they're serving, and they're serving some idol, incense and sacrifices, at the end of the day, there's only one force in the whole universe. There's only one energy in the whole universe, and that's Hashem. And Hashem is one. And so they may make it seem like they're serving some idol, but that's exactly the force of obscurity, the force of concealment, and that illusion is exactly that falsehood that they're perpetuating, that there is something aside from Hashem and there is an energy aside from Hashem. And so at the end of the day, really, it's only Hashem, and they're sacrificing to Hashem, and whatever they receive is only from Hashem, but it's going through this level of falsehood, this level of obscurity and darkness, and that's the sin in idol worship. And so Rabbi Nachman explains, how can we fix that? How can we dissolve that illusion, that sheker, and dissolve that idol worship and that klipa, and complete the Mizbeach? We want to complete the kingship of Hashem. The Mizbeach is the representation of the Malchut, which is the kingship of Hashem. And so we do that, says Rabbi Nachman, through Gerim, through the righteous converts. ועל ידי על ידי שכל אחד משליך אמונתו והולך אחר אמונת ישראל, על ידי זה מכניע עבודה זרה שנעשה מפגם חלקי המזבח, ואזי חוזרין ניצוצי חלקי המזבח למקומם ונשלם המזבח. Beautiful. So what does it mean that through the righteous converts we complete the Malchut, we fix the Malchut? Rabbi Nachman explains that it's a specific part of what the righteous converts are doing. What is that? So the righteous converts are lost. These are souls, Jewish souls that are lost in the 70 nations. And the difference between the 70 nations and the nation of Israel, the Jewish people, is what we believe in. It's our belief system. We believe in one Hashem, and they believe in many forces. Okay, they believe in many different forces and energies. And so the belief system in the one Hashem, more specifically the one Hashem that chose us as his nation and that gave us the Torah on Har Sinai, and that gave us the Torah through his appointed tzaddikim throughout the ages, throughout the generations, like Moshe Rabbeinu, and in each generation, the Gdolei Hador. That's our belief system. And that's the characteristics, that's the identity of a Jew, is the belief system. The belief system of a person is really right at the core of their spiritual essence, is what they believe in. When a person changes their beliefs, that affects the whole makeup of a person, the whole spiritual makeup of a person. And even now we know science has proven that even the physical body of a person is affected and changed just by the belief systems, changes in the belief system and the beliefs of a person. And so the belief is really one of the innermost parts of a person's spiritual essence. Okay, it's right up there, very close to the identity of the person. Okay, and so the Gerim, these are Jewish souls that are lost in the 70 nations, meaning that they are lost within these false belief systems, within these corrupted belief systems, emunot kozbiot, these wrong belief systems. What does that mean? That is the Malchut of the Sitra Achra. Okay, so the Rabbi Nachman explains, and this is based on the Zohar, that Malchut, if you look at the 10 Sfirot as the different parts of a person's consciousness, the belief of a person, the faith of a person, is the Malchut. And that's the place where things are not clear and they're not apparent and they're not right in front of me, but I use my belief and my faith, okay, that inner representation, in order to maneuver and in order to get through, just like a blind person. He doesn't see things clearly in front of him, but he believes that there is a table here and he believes there's a chair there, and that's how he knows how to get by and to get around, just by sensing it with this inner representation of reality. And that's what the belief system of a person is. And so the Gerim, these Jewish souls that are lost in that corrupted belief system, the corrupted belief system is the Malchut of the Sitra Achra. So the belief system of Torah, the belief system of truth, the belief system in Hashem is called the Malchut of Hashem, the kingship of Hashem. Okay, and that's the Malchut of the whole side of Kedusha. The other hand, the Malchut of Sitra Achra, the Malchut of the other side, the Malchut of the other side, which is basically the mother of the 70 nations, okay, and the mother of the Erev Rav, as the Zohar also calls it. and she's also called the strange woman. Isha Zara, the woman that the inappropriate woman, the harlot that Shlomo HaMelech refers to many times, that we must stay away from, is the mother of the 70 nations, and that's the corrupted belief systems that they are living with. Okay, and so when these Jewish souls are lost within that corrupted belief system, and now they leave that, and so there is a complete breaking down, a complete dissolving, a falling apart of those belief systems by those Jewish souls, and that's basically what's bringing them back to Judaism. Okay, and all of a sudden they look at their pastor and then the church is preaching this and whatever, and then something doesn't sound right about it, and they look further and they look deeper, and they see that this is all it's all shtut, it's all foolishness, it's all falsehood, it's all complete corrupted, and it's all made up, right? All the Christianity is all made up throughout the ages. It's not even what Yeshu believed. The Christianity that most Christians believe in today is not even what Yeshu believed in. Okay, it's all completely made up from the next generation, the next generation after that. But they look into it, and you can hear many converts, just these righteous converts, that some of them were even themselves priests, and they themselves preached for many years, and they studied Christianity, and then from looking into it a little deeper, they recognize how it's all corrupt and it's all not true, and then they just left it. And so there's a dissolving, a breaking apart of that belief system that causes them to come to the belief system of Judaism, the belief system of the Torah and the Mitzvot, the belief system in Hashem, that this belief system of the Malchut, right? Malchut Tikdusha, the Malchut of the side of holiness. And so when that happens, those sparks, those souls are coming back, okay, and they're bringing with them sparks of emunah. Okay, so now they, instead of believing and having their belief system completely hidden and completely buried in those belief systems of the 70 nations, they break free from that, and they're returning with their spark, with their soul, their Jewish soul, to the belief system of the Torah and the Mitzvah. And so those are sparks that belong to the Mizbeach. Those are sparks of belief, of trust, of a faith in Hashem that are part of the Malchut. As we said, Malchut is the belief system. And so those are being returned to the Malchut. Those are the sparks themselves that were stolen by those forces of obscurity, forces of concealment, stolen away from the Mizbeach, which allowed them, which gave them the power to overcome the Mizbeach and to cause that foolishness. And now those Gerim, those righteous converts, are breaking free, and though that belief system is fallen, okay, and now they're returning to Malchut of Kedusha, to the believing in Hashem, trusting in Hashem wholeheartedly, completely, and converting to Judaism. And now that is completing, it's fixing up the Mizbeach. All of those places where the Mizbeach was corrupted and was broken apart, now that's being fixed up. And the Mizbeach comes to its state of wholeness, of completion, with all of these sparks of the Mizbeach that have returned to it. And that causes the idol worship, the Avodah Zarah, to fall apart. And this corresponds to, this is the aspect that is expressed by, represented by the pasuk in Bamidbar that says that this is a pasuk by Bila, Lo yishkav ad yochal teref v'dam chalalim yishteh. Right? The Jewish nation does not lie down until he eats his prey. Remember, Rabbi Nachman explained in the previous shiurim about the teref, the prey, the predator that catches its prey is called the toref. The teref is the prey that the Malchut gives out to all of those that are in her family, okay? And then there is the teruf hadat, which is the same letters as teref, as the prey, but it's being corrupted. and now it becomes teruf hadat, which means the chaos, chaotic thinking, or the foolishness, or the lack of consciousness, which is basically what was affected by the forces of concealment, the klipot. And so when a person is on the side of holiness, in the family, integrated and included in the malchut, in the mizbeach of holiness, in the malchut of kedusha, the malchut of Hashem, then he is in the aspect of being a predator, meaning that he is receiving the prey, the parnasa, the sustenance, and the food from the malchut of holiness. And that's food that brings him to expanded consciousness. It's food that gives him energy to serve Hashem in a greater way. It's food from the mizbeach, just like the Kohanim would eat. And every Jew could eat from the food of the mizbeach, from the sacrifices on the mizbeach in certain places and certain times, right? And so that's the teref natani re'av, the prey she gave out to those that fear him. Nire'av. What does it mean, fear him? That's the experience of Malchut. Malchut is Isha Yirat Hashem, the woman of valor who is God-fearing, the God-fearing woman. That's the Malchut of the side of holiness. And she gives out this prey. And so look at this pasuk that we see in Bamidbar. Lo yishkav ad yochal teref, the Jewish nation does not lie down to sleep until he eats his prey, teref, that same word again, V'dam chalalim yishteh, and drinks the blood of his kill. Okay, now Rashi brings over there that it's referring to the Kriyat Shema, al-Hamita. When we say read Kriyat Shema every night before we go to sleep, we are fulfilling this prophecy. This is one of the characteristics of the Jewish nation. We don't go to sleep until we eat our prey and we drink the blood of the kill, meaning that we have completely eliminated all of our enemies and all the enemies that are surrounding the Malchut. We have eliminated them through our Kriyat Shema al-Hamita. V'targumo v'nichse amemaya yerat. What's the Targum, the translation of Targum on this pasuk? Is that he inherits the possessions of the nations. Okay, that's an interesting translation because that's not literally what the words of the pasuk are saying. He inherits the possessions of the nations. So Rabbi Nachman explains, Yuchal teref ze b'chelon shneimut ha-mizbeach, b'chinat mizbeach b'chelko shetoref. Kanal, v'zen alse al-yedei v'nechse amemaya yerat, haynu al-yedei gerim, kemo she'amar chachamenu zichron mevacha, le'inyan yerushot hager, kol hakodem b'nechse hager zacha. So says Rabbi Nachman that eating the prey, again, is just a description of the completion, perfection, the wholeness of the Mizbeach. As we said earlier, that the Mizbeach was in the portion of the predator. The predator is Binyamin, is called the Toref, the predator. Okay, so the Mizbeach, that's the aspect of Malchut, that Hashem conquers the whole world is included in Hashem's kingship. Okay, and that's the perfection of Malchut, where the whole world is recognizing Hashem as the God, as the one force, as the one energy in the whole universe who gave us the Torah. And so that's the completion of the Mizbeach. That's the elimination of idol worship, which is bringing the completion of the Mizbeach. When the Sheker is eliminated, so Emet is revealed and brought to the forefront. And so this is done how? By what Targum, what the Onkelos translates, the Pasuk, explains the Pasuk, by inheriting the possessions of the nations. Rabbi Nachman explains what's the possessions of the nations. Those are these souls, these Jewish souls that are returning to Judaism, that were lost among the nations. Those are the precious possessions that the nations have. They don't have any other possession that has any value except for the Jewish souls that were lost among those nations. And now those Jewish souls are being brought back to Judaism. They're converting, righteous converts. And so we are inheriting the possessions of the nations. Again, we are returning to us and inheriting these possessions that were by the nations, were lost by the nations, and through that, we are completing the Mizbeach. Okay, so we'll look more into that, Bezrat Hashem, in the next year we'll continue explaining this idea.